I've been looking at this matter, why a wife would be so upset with her husband, turning to pornography, masturbation, and orgasm. And we've titled these a series of videos, "Why is my wife so angry at my pornography?" This is the fourth in this series, and we're going to continue today talking about that matter. The reason why a wife is so upset and hurt when her husband does pornography, masturbation, and orgasm is because it feels very much on the part of the wife like a husband who's having an affair. It has an affair like sort of feeling to it for her. It has a feeling like adultery on the part of the wife. She feels that her husband has left him and is getting involved with other women. And so for her, it has very much like an adultery like sort of feeling to it. And obviously, that would be very hurtful. It would be very sad, and it'd be very, very discouraging for a wife. Today, we're going to look at identify two things that are going on there that will be better to look at under a microscope. We're going to talk about two. There's two. We'll talk about the first one, and in the next video, number 5, we'll look at the second thing that's also going on. So, here are the two things that are going on when a man does pornography, masturbation, and orgasm. Number one, on a very deep level, there really is an abandonment of his wife when he does this. He's abandoning his wife. He's betraying his wife. He's disconnecting from her in sexual ways. He's turning away from his wife. That's the first thing that happens, that a husband betrays and walks away from his wife. The second thing that's happening when he does pornography and masturbation orgasm is he's now turning to another woman. He's turning to, and he's uniting himself to, and he's cleaving to another woman. He's joining himself with another. And you put those two things together, and that's why a wife would feel very betrayed and very upset and very hurt when her husband is turning away from her, but aligning himself and turning to and uniting himself with another woman in pornography and masturbation and orgasm. Those are two. That's a very, very serious thing, and that's why it's so offensive and hurtful to a wife whose husband does pornography and masturbation and orgasm. Now, we're going to look at the first thing today about turning away from her. Video number 5, we'll talk about turning to another woman. But for our purposes right now, we're going to be looking at what happens when a man turns away in that way from his wife. Let's look at it, first of all, in the context of an adulterous situation. A man who's married but commits adultery. What happens there? A lot of things are happening, but we've identified 5. Number 1, when a man commits adultery, the first thing that he does is he turns away his desires from his wife and starts to desire another woman. In a way that he should only exclusively desire of his wife, he's turning away from her. That's number 1. Number 2 is he begins to seek out that other woman. Whereas a husband ought to seek exclusively his wife in these sexual matters. Well, he's now turning away from her in terms of his desire, having desires for another woman, but now he begins to turn away from seeking his wife exclusively. Now he is seeking another woman in ways that he should really not be doing. Number 3, excuse me, now instead of exclusively seeing his wife as his naked partner, now he's turning to finding another woman and seeking her nakedness. But fundamentally, he's turning away desire-wise, seeking-wise, and seeing another woman naked instead of exclusively his wife. A fourth way that he's turning away from his wife is in matters of foreplay. In matters of foreplay, he's turning away from his wife. He's not looking, he's not kissing, he's not fondling, he's not getting aroused in the foreplay, pre-intercourse sort of experience. He's turned away from his wife, and now he's seeking that with another woman. And that's another reason why it would be affair-like and adulterous-like. And then lastly, he's turning away from his wife and betraying his wife and abandoning his wife as the sole person in whom he's going to have an orgasm. And now he's turning to another person, another woman, for that experience. So on those 5 levels, a man is turning away from his wife and he's turning toward another woman. And if he were choose to do that, we would call that adultery. That is adultery. And adultery is so evil. It's so despicable. It's so deeply betrayal, a sense of betrayal, that God says there's only one reason why a man may be able to divorce his wife, or in this case, a wife to be able to divorce her husband. And it's got to be really bad. If there's only one reason, it's got to be for a really, really, really bad reason. But that reason is adultery. And what he's done is he's abandoned her exclusively in terms of those desires. He's abandoned his wife by seeking another woman. He's abandoning his wife by turning away from her and now looking at someone else in a naked way. He's abandoning his wife exclusively and now seeking another woman in regards to foreplay. And of course, he's abandoned his wife exclusively having orgasm with her, and now he's having orgasm with another person. And so for that betrayal in adultery, God says you are permitted to get divorced. That's how wicked it really is. Okay, now that's adultery. That's a married man who turns away from his wife in those 5 ways and turns toward another woman. But what's a man doing when he does pornography and masturbation and orgasm? Well, what he's doing is very, very similar, if not entirely, almost entirely identical. When a man does pornography and masturbation and orgasm, number one, he's doing a similar thing by turning away and abandoning his wife regarding those desires and finding desires for another woman, which he ought not to be doing. Number two, when a man does pornography and masturbation orgasm, secondly, he is betraying and abandoning his wife in terms of seeking another woman. He should be exclusively seeking his wife in these ways. He's turning away from her, abandoning her, and seeking another woman in ways that he should not be doing. Number three, he's turning away from exclusively seeking his wife in the context of nakedness, a marital nakedness, and now he's seeking a marital nakedness with another woman. Having abandoned his wife in that way, now he's seeking that nakedness, that marital nakedness with another woman. Fourthly, he's abandoning his wife with this exclusive sense of foreplay that he ought to exclusively be experiencing with her. And now he is experiencing that marital foreplay with another woman. And that would be obviously equally as wrong. And then lastly, he's abandoning his wife where he ought to be exclusively having orgasm with this one particular person. He's abandoning that, and now he's experiencing that marital orgasm with another woman. He's doing the same thing. He's seeking his wife, the exclusivity of that orgasm with one person, and that is with his wife. And now he's having that orgasm with another woman, that marital orgasm with another woman. Now that's why it's so affair-like and adulterous-like, is because they are very, very, very similar. And for that reason, that's why the wife is very upset and sad and hurt when her husband is doing that. Here's the point that I'd like to make today. What's going on here when this man turns away from his wife, desires-wise, seeking-wise, foreplay-wise, naked-wise, and orgasm? What's going on there? Well, what's going on there is the man is breaking his marriage vows when he does that. And that's a very serious thing. When we made vows on our wedding day, we made vows to forsake all others, to be singly devoted and exclusively one flesh with my wife. on all those levels and other ways as well than a wife with her husband. And we abandoned that, and we made vows and promises which were very, very sacred to be exclusive in these matters with her or with him alone, not to be shared with anybody else. Not to be shared with anybody else. And that's not to be shared with an adulteress if you're a husband. And it's not to be shared with anyone else in a pornographic, masturbatory, and orgasmic way with another woman in this case. It could be done with a wife, or I'm sorry, a husband, another man, but in our situation here, this man is abandoning that exclusivity and the promise. He's abandoning his sacred promises, vows, and commitment to his wife. He's abandoning all that, and he's aligning himself with someone whom he promised not to do on the day that he got married. And pastors, as we get people ready for marriage and with premarital counseling, we need to ask our prospective husbands and wives, their fiancés, we need to say, do you understand this is what you're doing? When you're going to stand before God and witnesses and me, and when I pronounce you man and wife, and when you make these vows, this is what you're doing. Are you understanding, wife, that you are not to forsake the exclusivity of the oneness that you are to be experiencing with your husband for the rest of your life? And husband, do you understand that you are to be faithful to your wife, and you're not to be committing adultery, and you're not to be doing pornography and masturbation, orgasm, because that too is very affair-like and adulterous-like? Are you understanding? Are you prepared for that? Do you understand your commitment and your vows for one another are to be exclusive for one another for the rest of your life, and not to be sharing those things with another person? That's what pastors need to have a very honest conversation with their fiancés, husbands and wives who are going to be married, and asking, and who he is being asked to marry them. Now, you can't make them fulfill those vows and keep those vows, but you can warn them that that's what those vows are all about, and that when they make those vows, God expects them to be keeping those vows with one another. Every time a man, a husband, does pornography and masturbation and orgasm, he is abandoning his marriage. He is abandoning his marital vows. He is breaking his marital vows every single time he does pornography, masturbation, and orgasm. In the Old Testament, God spoke very clearly about this in the book of Malachi, quickly for our purposes here. God's upset at the Israelites, and he gives them various reasons why. And this is what he says in chapter 2. Another thing that you do, you flood the altars with tears, Lord's altar with tears. You weep and wail because he no longer pays attention to your offerings or accepts them with pleasure from your hands. You ask why? Why is he not paying attention and accepting our offerings? And this is what Malachi says, or God says through Malachi. It is because the Lord is acting as a witness between you and the wife of your youth, because you have broken faith with her, though she is your partner, the wife of your marriage vow, the wife of your marriage covenant, the wife of your marriage promise. You made vows, you made promises, you made covenants, and the Lord is upset at you in not accepting your sacrifices, because you have broken faith with the one in whom you made promises to. And the Lord's very upset when a husband does that, when a wife does that. They can do it by way of committing adultery, or they can also do that by way of pornography, masturbation, and orgasm. Okay. That's why a wife is very hurt and upset when her husband does pornography and masturbation, orgasm. Now, today we just talked about one half of that. What is it when I'm doing pornography and masturbation, orgasm? I hope you would agree with me that you're breaking faith with your wife. You are breaking your marital vows when you depart from her and align yourself with another person in these ways. Now, the second thing that we're going to do in video number 5, the next video, is we're going to pay more attention to what's really going on here. When I am departing from her but aligning myself with another person, we're going to need to put that under the microscope as well and understand very, very deeply what's wrong with that, what is actually happening there, and understanding why we should not be doing this. See you then.